Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Austin students are finding out their good behavior is really the norm. Learn how one community is tackling housing needs, and we recount the history of Minnesota State University, Mankato. On Cue is next.
From KSMQ Television in Austin, this is On Cue, connecting interesting issues and interesting people. On Cue.
The Austin Positive Action Coalition, APAC, has been hard at work, and joining me today with some updates, some very interesting statistics about students is Bill Spitzer, Planning and Implementation Coordinator of APAC, and to get the student perspective, Sarai Dwayne Niana Sane from Austin High School is also my guest. And I apologize, I got your name right, Bill, but Sarai, please say your name for me.
Sarai Dueñez Santillanes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And thanks for being here, too.
Yeah, no problem.
We're going to talk about your organization, which is sort of the student part of APAC. Your group's called STAND. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Bill, first off, APAC. What is it and how does it work?
Sure. APAC is part of our grant that we received in Austin, and it's the Austin Positive Action Coalition. And it's kind of the steering group for a lot of the activities that we'll be doing in the Austin community over the next 5 years. So I look at it as the steering, the think tank kind of organization, made up of a number of different community members. We have 14 different sectors that are represented at APAC. We have people from healthcare, from the schools, from law enforcement, criminal justice, yourself, from the media aspect. So we try to get the perspective of a number of different community members on the committee. And
first off, folks around the Austin area, Mower County, might recognize your organization from those billboards. Truth is.
Right.
It's amazing how many people have seen them.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of the teaser that we put out there. Can you handle the truth? And then we basically are expanding from that, and you should be seeing a new billboard within the next few weeks. We're targeting the parents and the community members.
And this is to get people to cut teen drinking, to not drink alcohol if you're underage.
The main goal is to reduce the alcohol consumption among underage individuals in the community, yes.
With the thinking that if we arm folks with knowledge, they'll see that the problem is sort of misunderstood maybe by our communities, not just Austin, but anywhere.
It's certainly amazing. Some of the stuff that we gather, we gather a lot of data, we do a lot of surveying, and maybe some of the audience members have taken some of our surveys. But we try to gather this data, and one of the interesting things is the perception between the actual use of whatever drug it may be, alcohol in this case, is much lower than what the perceived use is. I mean, it's just incredible of how many people will throw a number out like, yeah, I bet you half the kids at the high school, or 60%, when the actual number is closer to 13 to 14%. So it's interesting to see that that perception gap there.
And Sarai, part of that, your group in STAND, Students Taking a New Direction, is possibly to educate, understand that other students should know, I'm not in the minority if I don't drink. Most people don't drink in high school.
Yep.
How did you get involved in the organization? You've been in for a couple of years now, since you were at Ellis.
Yep. Well, I started I saw it up in a paper up in the wall at Ellis, and it had some information about it, and it actually interested it. And I went to the first meeting, and I was like, yeah, I want to be in this. And since then, I've been in the group. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed everything we do together. And I learned a lot of things together, and learned and talked to new friends.
What kind of things do you do as a group? There's 20 of you at the high school,
Yep.
60 at Ellis. What sort of things does STAND do?
Well, one of the activities we actually did was a few weeks ago. We went out to the community and took pictures. We took pictures of the negatives and the positives of Austin, and we sent them out to the city and told them that they should fix these parts of Austin. Like, for an example, the graffiti is a lot of problem out in Austin under the bridges, and that's one of the negatives in Austin.
Well, that's really interesting to come out and do that. Any other topics come to mind that you've done in STAND that were fun?
Well, that's actually the fun one that we actually did together, and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Bill, Austin is just one of a few communities that are being made available. This information is coming to 5 or so other communities?
Actually, it's as high as 9. There's 9 other communities, including Austin in the state of Minnesota, that were awarded this grant. And it's awarded every 5 years. And this is the 3rd go-round. So to date, they've had, I think, almost 20 other communities in the state of Minnesota that have experienced this grant, in addition to the 9 that are currently under the grant. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of communities have taken advantage of this opportunity.
And it's based on some research, like the name Positive Action Coalition. Now, folks, that doesn't sound like alcohol necessarily to me, and it's positive actions. It's based on scientific research that just changed the mindset in your community.
Actually, it is. Traditional prevention methods have been scare tactics or focusing on the negative part of the statistic. So in our case, it would have been focusing on that 13–14% of our young people that are choosing to use. Traditional grants would focus on that. This one, however, focuses on the students that are not using, and it puts out positive community norm messages that focuses on the positive things. There's a lot of positive things that are going on in the community, and this is one way that they can actually focus on that. Instead of focusing on the negative, we focus on the positive.
And that's something that you in your career as a law enforcement officer probably wish you could do more of. Positive. You worked for many years in sheriff's work, and so now it's sort of a positive thing.
Right, you know, like you said, for about 31 years I was a law enforcement officer, and 95% of my time was dealing with 5% of the population that was in, you know, not so good shape. I mean, they were talking, you know, those are incidences where, you know, maybe they were in a bad situation, or maybe they had a traumatic thing happen to them. And it's quite a change to move to this end, which is focusing on all the positive things that are going on in the community, which certainly way outnumber the negative things. And that's why it's so fun to work with the positive versus the negative.
Can other students, maybe they're watching, can they join your group? And if so, how do they sign up?
Absolutely, we would love to accept them in our group, because the more kids there are, the more we put out an example for the community. And if you guys want to join, you just come to the high school. You can come to Bill or Carla, one of the in-chargers, and just come to our meetings and sign up, and that's how you're in the group.
How often do you get together?
We get together the first Friday of each month during the school day.
Okay. And boy, this is a new experience for the high school also. Do you do things within the school? You've talked about going out and taking pictures in the community. Are there signs up in the school, or do you do anything during the school day to educate other students?
Well, we have a school dance coming up that we actually organize, and it's for us. Actually, the dance is for everyone to the school to attend, to have fun, and to talk with people, and without alcohol.
What's the most surprising thing that you've learned since you've been in the STAND group?
Well, surprising thing is that I didn't know about 5% of the Austin kids actually do drugs and alcohol. And a lot of people think that, oh, Austin kids do drugs, but it's not actually true. Some actually dedicate their time to school and studying to be successful in the future. And you don't need alcohol to have fun. For an example, you can go out to the movies, go out to eat, or even play a sport to yeah.
And some of this, thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
It's also the nature of an adolescent is sort of groupthink, and groups talk, and oh yeah, I did this and I did that, and and so the perception of use can probably get way over what the reality is.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times our perception becomes our reality. I mean, I'm sure you've been in situations like that where something is blown way out of proportion and you're going, wow, how did this happen? And it's about perception. And the best thing that we can do is try to close that gap between what's really happening and what people think is really happening, minding that gap between perception and reality.
Yeah.
And your website, is there, people can get more information?
Truthisaustin.com.
Truthisaustin.com. Thank you both very much.
Yep.
You're welcome.
And congratulations, great program.
Thank you.
Stay with us. Our Vision 2020 update is coming up next.
Queue up your own comments for On Cue and send them to us at onq@ksmq.org.
Welcome back to On Cue. We're here on location at the Austin Artwork Center talking with leaders who are making a difference in our community. Vision 2020 began 5 years ago with a simple goal: make Austin a better place to live, work, and play for everyone by the year 2020. And we're joined today by Craig Clark, City Administrator for the City of Austin, Vision 2020 steering member, member of the Business Friendly Environment Committee, and many other things besides. So thanks for being here, Craig.
You bet. Glad to be here.
Really great to talk to you. So one of the big issues on the front burner for the city and for those of us thinking about community development is housing. Right. Could you tell us a little bit about why that's important for all of us to care about, and how it affects the broader economy and what's been going on lately?
Well, right. It is a particular challenge in a lot of respects. Folks that live in their house or have housing that's suitable right now, are concerned about themselves and don't look at the broader picture. But when you look at employment and business owners that want to grow and expand, being able to attract a talent pool and have places for them to call home is critically important. So that's a fundamental challenge here in Austin.
Mm-hmm. And I know that the city and the HRA have been pursuing a new update to the housing study recently, trying to get some more data and trends behind what's been going on. What are you seeing there so far, and what does the future look like? Yeah,
we did a study in 2013, and now we've got a draft report of the new one now coming forward, and we're going through that and continuing to see that demand for housing at all levels, particularly in senior housing, multifamily housing. Those are particular challenges that we're seeing in the report, and we'll have to carry those forward and build on what we've done thus far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So could you tell us a little bit about the policies and different things that have been put in place already and how those have been impacting the situation?
Right. In 2016, the mayor started an ad hoc committee on housing. We brought together private sector folks to look at the housing challenges and what might be able to be done. One of the outcomes of that, probably the leading marquee item, was a housing tax abatement program. So for any multifamily or single family home, the city as well as the county and school district adopted a tax abatement program from now until 2019. The end of 2019, folks can enjoy property taxes free outside of what they're already paying for the base property to try to spur that multifamily and single family home construction. So that was a marquee thing that the ad hoc committee came forward with. We've got other projects that we're working on as well, but that was probably the marquee one.
Sure. And in terms of the housing starts you talked about, what did things look like, say, 2 years ago versus today? How's the program changed?
Probably
things?
On average, we had about 6 single-family homes in each year of the last 5 years. We're seeing that number now tick up, hopefully in part because of the abatement program. We've processed 13 different applications through the city. The county's seen double that out in the county as well. So we're really seeing a lot of growth and opportunity for that as far as that's concerned. Some of it's the broader market improving as well as the abatement program. But the chance for homeowners over those 5 years to have value of, $4 or $5 to up to $10,000 in savings is pretty significant for them to go ahead and make that selection to build a new home. So those collectively are something we're excited to see as far as the rebound in the housing market.
Yeah, that's great, and it's nice to see that there's been some sustained attention to this issue. There's lots of people that are looking at the issue and trying to think progressively about how we can be proactive and do something about it. So that's some good progress.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted issue and something that's going to take a concerted effort to work on for years, but something I know the City Council is committed to in their 2016, 17, and most likely 2018 goals.
Sure. You hinted at some other projects. Is there anything else you'd like to share at the moment that's been on
other
the docket?
projects, we're working with a lot of different developers to try to see what interest there'd be to move forward some projects. Certainly the HRA's been working on the Fox Point project to bring home some new townhome projects north of town. Science Park certainly helped in the equation as well, but we're really just kind of laser focused on trying to add new units and trying to figure out what the mix is going to take to get those projects to move from no to go.
Right. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Well, thanks a lot, Craig. We really appreciate you being here and all the work you do for the City of Austin.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's all for this edition of Vision 2020 Updates. If you'd like more information or would like to get involved, please visit us at www.vision2020austin.com. Thanks for doing your part to create a greater Austin.
You can watch On Cue anytime by visiting the KSMQ TV website, ksmq.org.
Minnesota State University Mankato was founded in 1868 as Mankato Normal School. The first building wasn't completed until 1870, and the first classes were held at the Shawbutt Building on Mankato's Front Street. Once complete, the Normal School building housed all of the school's classrooms and administrative offices until it was destroyed by a fire in 1922. A new building, known as Old Main, was constructed on the same location. In 1921, the school was renamed Mankato State Teachers College. This was a time of great growth, and many new buildings, including dormitories, were added to the campus. The college began to offer more than just teaching degrees, and in 1957, it changed its name once again, this time to Mankato State College. During this phase of the college, the campus was split between two locations: Lower Campus, where the school began, and Highland Campus, where the school resides now. The campuses consolidated in 1979, 2 years after the school became known as Mankato State University. Today, the school is known as Minnesota State University Mankato, and it offers a variety of courses from certifications to graduate and doctoral degrees. This story of the past was brought to you by the Blue Earth County Historical Society.
This week's throwback segment is from an old episode of Snapshot. Now, Snapshot was produced by KSMQ back in the 1990s and the early 2000s. It follows the restoration of an old player piano in Rochester.
Kundurla's living room swells with the music of a golden age. At the drop of a coin, his collection of vintage player pianos pumps out the hits without missing a beat.
This one, instead of playing the pipes in addition to the piano, the pipes and the mandolin bar, this one plays the wooden barred xylophone and the mandolin and the piano. So we'll see what we get with this nickel.
Don's fascination with player pianos started as a kid. Then, when he was in the market for a piano for his kids, he bought one and proceeded to rebuild it from the bottom up. The process taught him to appreciate the finer points of mechanical music-making machinery and the melodies it brings to life.
I have mechanical ability, and I'm the only one in our family that never took music lessons, but always liked music, and I'm probably the one that should have, so but that's the way things go. But I enjoy it this way.
From those humble beginnings, his collection has grown to a point where he's bought, fixed up, and sold more player pianos than he can remember. And he's developed a reputation as the man to see for guidance on all sorts of mechanical instruments.
The upright players, almost every farm had one on because the piano salesman usually was out with the horse and the wagon with a couple in the wagon, and he normally ended up someplace about dark and had unloaded one, and by the time he left in the morning, well, he usually had managed to sell the farm couple of pianos, so. Now I'll put it back in. But the big deal about player pianos was that every battleship or transport ship that went to Europe in World War I had numerous player pianos on it for the troops to enjoy themselves while they were going over and coming back. And they got back, that's the first thing they went to, is the music store and bought one.
Don's got the same fever as those World War I soldiers, and he's taken it a step further, adding an assortment of calliopes and pump organs to his collection. This one played center stage at an amusement park in California before winding up in Don's collection.
This is an old original Tangley Calliope made in Muscatine, Iowa, and the date and the tag on it is made in 1926. And actually it was made more or less as a promotional instrument. And they made them for different companies, like for Beechnut Gum. They had one on their truck and ran down the streets, up and down the streets in Chicago, and any promotional deal they use them. Normally you always saw at least one in a circus parade. They call it happy music. It's a happy atmosphere.
Armed with hand tools and plenty of patience, Don's taken on the personal challenge of restoring as many of these vintage pump organs and pianos as possible. It's his way of preserving their unique sound and place in history.
There's another generation coming in around now, so that actually maybe we hope that they'll take more interest in these things. Rather than to go deaf over boom boxes, maybe they'll find something pleasant to listen to us. Once in a while, guys, we'll quiz you about the mechanical workings of them, but most people don't think about that part, I guess. They're just amazed that something like this was made, because you never saw that much of it around.
This rare, expressive grand piano is a case in point. It and dozens of others were sold to Rochester's elite during the 1920s. Under Don's loving care, this one is still making a musical statement today.
Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time when we learn about the campaign 2 towns in southeastern Minnesota are waging to build a veterans home. That's right here on Cue.
On Cue is a production of KSMQ Television in Austin, nonprofit public television.
Educational, wholesome, enriching and quality. KSMQ TV shows about people, places, things you know. Programs with a family fit, tuned to the source. KSMQ TV, the better choice.
You can access more information about KSMQ on Facebook and at ksmq.org.
KSMQ TV, the better choice.